Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Simulationist podcast. This is iteration 148 of the podcast, recorded on the 5th of July, 2015.
Happy July 4th weekend.
May July the 5th be with you.
I guess we should give a little bit of apologies. It wasn't like a long weekend. Up here in Canada, we had July 1st on the Wednesday, so we effectively had two tiny weeks things, followed by, a midday party.
Yes, we should apologize to all the people who we've deprived of...
No, just that, I'm sorry that you weren't able to have, a July 4th long weekend.
Yeah.
Which, let's admit it, anytime you get, a long weekend, it's a great, time. And July 4th is all about, getting together, and so it's a very community-based sort of thing. It's like, oh boy, we're all Americans, let's all have fun, sort of thing. Let's go out and meet the neighbors. Christmas is kind of exclusive. If you're not of the faith or, tangentially related to the faith, it's kind of not your holiday. In some places, some peoples feel a little excluded, which gives rise to, the old joke, what is the traditional Jewish Christmas meal? Chinese food.
Oh, yeah.
Since they don't celebrate Christmas, they're not going to have the Christmas feast. Who are the only other people open on Christmas Day, to do that sort of thing? Well, the Chinese restaurants.
There you go.
So, it does feel a little left out for those other people, but as long as you're living in America on the July 4th, event, congratulations, you're American. Let's all party together. And so it really does help out with their melting pot philosophy a little bit. It's you're really different from me. We don't even have the same religion, but we're all Americans. Let's light off some fireworks together.
Yeah, and we had fireworks here.
Yeah.
In case this is people's first time listening to the podcast, I am Josh Trelevin, and the other person you're hearing is...
Slightly stoked Ryan Kirkby.
Stoked.
I just really appreciate both the Canada Day, or Dominion Day if you're the classic-minded person, and Independence Day. I think they're very good civic holidays that unify the populace.
I enjoy Canada. Well, I enjoy fireworks, I enjoy music, and I enjoy a little bit of crowds. I'm not a huge crowd person, but I did. Did you make it down to?
No, I enjoyed the double pay rate. So I got 5 hours, 5.25 hours at double pay. So it's I made out like a bandit there. Then I just went to the south end of Gorge Park and, played with my daughter and the wife.
Were there people there, too?
There was a decent number of people, but it was far from what you consider a crowd. Yeah. I wasn't able to get there till after about 6:30. I wanted to make sure I had a proper shower, and, if any photos are going to be me taken, it's not going to be after, a work day with a work hat, sort of hair going on. Make sure I was all spruced up for it. And by that time, it was a nice evening, sort of thing, late afternoon event. Didn't get a chance to see the band at the Gorge Park. Didn't get a chance to have much of that lemonade that they always sell. It's very good lemonade.
Okay, yeah.
Well, especially on a hot day, and it's always a hot July 1st, clear skies here.
Who's selling lemonade there? Or is it just is it a brand?
See, here's the thing:
is
every time I try and think of a lemonade brand, my mind goes to Lemon Demon, and he's a singer that does fancy little nerdy
that's
songs.
Not lemonade.
No, he does not. To the best of my knowledge, Lemon Demon does not sell lemonade. But they've been doing it consistently there. It's basically water, sugar water, with an actual lemon in there, and you can put a few squirts of different, flavorings in there if you want.
Is it like a food truck kind of deal? Only
No,
lemon?
Well,
or a cart? Or?
It is a cart. They've got the whole. Usually, it started off as a cart a couple of years back. Now it's more of a little pavilion style, so they get a little bit more room to operate because they are really busy, especially because. as I said, like since my daughter's been born, it's been always a perfectly sunny sky, July 1st, and no matter how fast they work, there's a lineup waiting for them.
Yeah, and so food trucks are pretty big. Like I went, because I was down at the legislature just after the fireworks. I just caught the last end of them, and there was a huge crowd, lots of people. Like I didn't, that's the thing about Victoria. You don't even know that Victoria is that populated.
We're fairly spread out as cities go. I mean, we don't have the huge towering skyscrapers of New York or Toronto.
Yeah, it's true.
Or I suppose even Vancouver, for that matter. I mean, you got some tall buildings there, I suppose.
And in the summer, we have kind of cruise ship crowds, so it can get quite crowded down there with like foot traffic.
I think it's always nice because, I mean, like, you might not always see the tourists depending where you are, but usually you can hear the horn, as the ship comes into port or leaves port, and that's it is a nice distinctive background sound. Like if I was to do a story in Victoria and it becomes a movie, you'd have to have that just operating as a random it wouldn't even be like a plot point. It'd just be a background noise. That's how you know.
Just have seagulls and foghorns and...
Well, no, I mean, you don't even really hear much for any foghorn around here, but you definitely hear the sound of the tourist ships coming into and leaving port.
Yep.
And it's like one of those indicative sounds that you just know. You don't even have to have like a distinctive, like, this all scenes will happen on the lawn of the Empress. That's how people will know it's Victoria. It's like, no, you just make sure that you've got that horn thing going on there, and you keep the attitude right, and people will infer from it.
Sure, yeah. Sounds good.
My wife got interviewed.
Uh-huh.
Yes, the People of Victoria Facebook group found her and my daughter, and so they asked her, like a question, like, okay, how are things, like, how did you come to be here, like what's your story?
Yeah.
And she gave a little note about how, her and I, how she came to Canada, what she was doing for the first little while, and how her and I met as a co-worker basis. As our relationship started and bloomed.
Sure.
And, yay! So my wife's like a little local celebrity. Hooray. Several hundred likes on Facebook, and all that.
Oh, that's cool.
And the fun thing was that, we met at the place called Cell4. It was a nice laboratory, business thing going on there. Unfortunately, it's no longer with us. It was a startup company, wasn't able to weather the bad economy when things got really nasty. And she never gave the name of it in her description there. But because people recognized my wife, because she was such a popular person, and how she described it, they were able to recognize that it was a Cell4 story. We are not the only people to have fallen in love and developed a relationship at Cell4.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, for a place that made trees, we made an awful lot of families, too. I don't know. There's an awful lot of husband-wife combos in there that either came to work there as husband and wife or became husband and wife there. I don't know, man. Like, apparently when you have plantable germinants, and seedlings like that, it sets the mood for love and romance.
Okay. Or that people are working and they have money, so...
Yeah, boy, do I miss those paychecks. I miss the good sense, like, at the end of even the harshest day there, it was a nice sense of, I've done good. Not well, but good. I've legitimately helped out the silviculture industry today, and everything I do helps towards a further end on that. And so you'd feel good no matter how bad things went, how tough things were, how many things went wrong. You're still thinking, no, I am making progress for society. Because if we could have kept the business going, we in the royal case, I had very little say in why don't we contact these people and why don't we contact these people? No. The higher-ups did that. But if the company had been able to keep going long enough, we would have gone for third, fourth generation trees for our lines, and the projected rate of productivity would have made it so abundant and cheap to make wood that only the richest people on Earth could be able to afford not having wood in their houses. It would become so abundant and so readily available and cheap. Could you imagine trees growing like weeds outside, Josh?
Aren't trees they're plants?
Well, they are plants, but I mean they're plants that take sometimes an 80-year lifespan.
Oh yeah. Well, I know in Asia they have bamboo, which grows extremely fast. It's technically a grass, and it just grows super fast, and they can build things out of that.
Could you imagine trees growing at the speed of kudzu, the plant that ate Georgia? That's actually its title. It's not just a bad movie. It grows up to a foot a day under ideal conditions. Like, you ever see a spot where you're looking down in Georgia and like everything's covered in that vine, and it's just like
I've seen
that's kudzu, man. That's Could you imagine trees growing like that where you can literally see the difference? Like, you go off like, oh, I'm going to Las Vegas for the summer. I've got a wonderful Vegas job down there. They need me for 4 months. You come back and you go, wow, all these trees got big.
Well, like I was saying about bamboo, I can imagine it because I know it's possible, physically possible. I think it's amazing.
But can you imagine a conifer tree doing that? Could you imagine like a conventional tree?
Yes. I mean, I can picture it. I mean,
that was our ultimate goal, was to create forestable timber that would have grown like that.
Yeah, that would be really definitely cool. And so is that not happening?
I believe most of the intellectual property rights are owned by a company out of the Carolinas, and I haven't been able to follow them as to what they do. Okay. There was 2 other rival companies, but they were nowhere near either our productivity or our level of progress. Huh. Like, we were doing 20 million trees a year. They were lucky if they could clear a single million. So we were the forerunners on the planet of this. And it was nice to see that people recognized it, not just as that, not just with all the stuff we managed to do, but, yes, you are, a part of the Cell 4 crew and the Cell 4 style. And it was very nice to see. Well, like, almost as nice as seeing my wife become a minor little celebrity here in Victoria and on Facebook. I mean, 250 likes by the last time I looked. I'm pretty certain there's more now. So hooray! Cool. Yeah. I actually even got featured on the Victoria Buzz group too. They linked up, and I like the Victoria Buzz Facebook group. It's kind of like getting a proper news feed, but for all the things that are happening right now, what's going on? Why is this road closed? Why is the horrible sky today colored like an orangey brown color? What forest fire is doing that? Chances are they got the goods on it. So that's kind of nice. So yay, they appreciate my wife and her wonderful story.
Okay, well that's another, I suppose, interesting local story that's happening right now.
Well, that's the big thing that's really happened for me, and what happened on Canada Day. So you got out there, and things happen to you. Life happens to you, but only if you're out and about. You hole yourself up in your house all day long. You don't go to the fireworks and all that. You don't get interviewed. You don't have life happen. It passes you by.
That's true.
So, I mean, that's the ultimate point I was going to make on this one, is that fiction is nice, and usually it's better than reality. Yeah. But if you don't have any fun stories from reality to compare, I mean, like, fiction has got no basis. Yeah. So you got to get out there sometimes. As much as we talk about things that never happened, you do have to have some comparison. Go out there and do something.
Yeah. Well, I guess my thesis has always been that fiction is how we understand, is how we put together our thoughts about reality. So, we tell stories about reality, and like, what if this little thing changed? And then, part of it is you have to have that input of real life, whatever that is. You have to have some kind of input, anyways, and be able to chew it up, or rearrange it, or
at least have reality as your square one. Yep. The shape and the number of whatever step you go on to after that, is up to you, but you got to start at square one. That's why it's called square one.
But of course, and the other thing about fiction and imagination and simulations is that it leads to things like maybe a biotech company, or like where you dream about, well, what if our trees didn't have to grow at an inch at a time.
Well, see, that's the weird thing, because I remember back in high school we actually had a debate in our biology class as to the ethics of growing genetically elite trees. If you could grow a tree that grows faster, stronger, straighter, and all that stuff, is it ethical to do so? As it turns out, the answer is yes, although it is rather hard to be profitable in bad economic times. Only time was able to give me that answer. I did not know in '98 when I was giving the debate about the company at the time.
I see.
Well.
At the time, but way back, did you argue for or against?
I argued for it, because so long as you don't genetically tamper with it to do any cross genomics, then really what you're doing is just getting the elite of the trees and making sure they have a bit more of a pronounced reproduction rate compared to the other tree populace.
So are you against the actually taking genes out of other organisms? And
I find it problematic on the higher end of the biology stuff. Things like wheat, when you're only adding a single gene in there, and that's for something like like water resistance. Mm-hmm. Okay, here's the fun thing. We know more about genetically modified crops, all genetically modified crops, any genetically modified crops, than we know about broccoli. Broccoli is not a natural species. Mm-hmm. We had to cultivate that back in like the Roman Empire era.
So you're saying we have less knowledge about broccoli?
We have less knowledge about the basic products we give to kids to tell them to eat because it's healthy than we do about the products that are genetically modified and people are afraid of.
Well, what do you mean we? Do you mean we?
We as in society.
Consumers?
The stereotypical generic consumer.
Yeah, because like scientists, in theory, would know basically everything you need to know about broccoli, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we haven't really studied it. We don't have...
Scientists have no idea what broccoli is?
We haven't studied the genetics of broccoli to the same degree that we studied any of our greater crops, such as rice, corn, or wheat. Okay. And we've got, when you're putting like a gene in there, you really want to know what gene you're putting in there. You don't want to just they call it Frankenfood for this stuff, but that's really a bad term for it because, like Frankenstein was just kind of patched together sort of thing. Oh, need a heart of this, heart of that. This is really the equivalent of just a heart transplant. You're only putting one thing in to make it better. In which case you got like a wheat crop that, is, oh, I've got a bad heart, which is in this case, drought vulnerability.
Yeah.
Whereas you put in a new heart and drought resistance gene, and hell no, like what am I going to do? I'm going to start killing people because it's the heart of a murderer? It's like no. Only bad movies will tell you that, or I guess, somewhat crazy people will tell you that, putting an organ of someone else in you will make you more like that person.
Yeah, because on the genetic level, it's more like just adding pieces, almost like a computer code. It's just like
very much
this bit of computer code.
Although, mind you talk to any programmer and they'll say just copy pasting anywhere at random is usually a bad idea, because who knows what sort of weird quirks the system winds up having.
And ideally, like when you're doing genetic manipulation, you're not copying pasting at random either.
Well, that's the thing. Some of the more traditional genetic techniques was a bit more of like here's the gene sequence that you want. Now you take the genetic structure that you want to put it in, and bam, you irradiate it till it's broken, and then you shove the gene there and see if you can put it in, and then you test it. Does it work right? Did we put it in the right spot? Did it take up in the right location? Yes, versus a whole lot of no's. And then all those no's get like incinerated to such a degree that genetics, there's no genetic material left. Trust me, incineration is a lowball term for how nasty they burn this stuff. There is nothing genetic left over. It's
interesting though that there's this like DNA code is. I compared it to computer code just a second ago, but it's a very because it arose naturally. Sorry, I can't speak. It arose naturally, and it's very redundant too in a lot of ways. Like it has sort of
there have a lot of assumed redundancies, but with a lot of genetics, we're still not 100% certain of how everything correlates together.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
Like sickle cell anemia, for instance. That's a pretty nasty genetic condition. Your blood cells, instead of being nice round, kind of like teacup shape. Well, not teacup, but tea saucer shapes. They're more like sickle shapes, hence the name sickle cell, and that makes you anemic. So you wind up being like, oh, I'm getting so tired so easily. What's going on? That's a kind of nasty genetic condition to have. Very deleterious to you. However, it shows a marked immunity to malaria and other blood-borne diseases that infect the red blood cells in the body and cause them to explode. So you'll be okay for a few days, and all of a sudden, oh, this blood is just no longer good. I'm so tired. I need to sleep for a while. Sleeping sickness is a nice one for it too. But if you have one copy of the healthy, blood cell and one copy of the sickle cell, you get a little bit of sickle cell, so it's a little harder. You got to really work for that higher end days, wages out in the field. But you still have the good immunity to the sleeping sickness and those other blood-based diseases. So while having it as a homozygote for either normal blood or sickle cell is bad for you in certain conditions, you are doing very well in the heterozygote condition. So you have to look at it in a more holistic approach. Not just what does this do naturally to the blood, but how does the other things outside affect it.
Okay, I'm not sure I've really followed it. And what does it have to do with kind of it being code?
If you were to look at it just as a code, you'd say, you've got an error, transcription error here. Your blood cells aren't being produced in the proper shape. They're coming out in a sickle cell. You're not looking at where that advantage might lie. You're simply looking at it as like, the blood cells aren't able to carry enough oxygen around. You're not working efficiently. You've got some bad cells here. If you fix this bad gene, it won't happen. Okay, so I'll put out another, like patch note for the human genome, fix the sickle cell problem that's been happening in some people's bloodstreams. And then you don't have the people that have the partial sickle cell, which they're still able to operate pretty much, as well as a healthy person with the normal blood cells, but they provide at least resistance to the sleeping sickness diseases.
Yeah, but now here's the thing, like, wouldn't that, I mean, that's a cool example, and I've heard that before about sickle cell.
I may have told it to you before, yes.
But also, wouldn't that be, like, that's just sort of one area, and I get the feeling that sort of most of genetics and most of the genetic code is a little bit more resilient in that if you just hit it randomly somewhere with some radiation, you're probably not going to hit something that's immediately going to be obvious.
Well, it might not be obvious like that, but we do have some linked genes going on where if you don't have one this far from the other, then certain mess-ups occurred in transcription. Yeah. We're still not 100% certain as to which ones are like that, which ones are active, which ones are dormant. And so, especially for humanity, where if you mess up, it's somebody else's life that winds up suffering for it. I can definitely see, knock that off.
Well, I wouldn't be, I'm not in favor of just randomly irradiating people. Like, here, let's just see what happens. But if you,
That said, I'm not completely, heartless when it comes to, what people... For some nonsense type things, let's say I'm kind of bored of all the different eye colors. I don't think there's enough different eye colors out there. I want to add another 5 different eye colors into the human genome. I'm fine with that. I mean, rock on, buddy, go for it. Maybe you want more colors of hair. I know the Japanese do a lot of blue-haired people, in their anime. Maybe they want blue-haired people. I think that's perfectly fine.
Okay, so how would you go about doing that? You start up a lab and you experiment on, I don't know, monkeys or something like that, and you figure out which genes you have to
Well, we already know which genes control for hair color. So all you have to do is introduce into the genome more hair color genes.
Well, I don't think it's that easy because the hair
the proper
color...
transcriptase could chop out, and then you could put in I guess we'll say blue hair gene.
Hair color is... But there's really only one pigment in hair, and it's just a question of how much you get, right? Well,
there is now. It's not that hard to, by checking out, different species, that are fellow mammalians with different ranges. Leopard spots, for instance, have very interesting patterns going on, and so you could utilize them as a nice, at least a cursory check to see what sort of genes system they're using to get spots.
Spots is another thing, though, because that's basically just, it's also dealing with gradients of a color, like how much of
the white through brown to black color spectrum.
It's basically the one substance that's coloring all the hair. It's just a question of how much you have in each area, and that's kind of interesting. Like, how do you genetically code for spots? Because it's not like you have to code every single spot. It's more of a code of
Well, I could have used examples with birds because they definitely go with ranges of greens. Although I will note their blues are very hard to keep up. They require constant regeneration, and they lose their luster if the bird isn't completely healthy. So in that case, if you want to be a blue hare, you're going to have to wind up keeping it to moderate to short length. It's not going to look good when you get long. It'll lose its luster and turn all brittle. That said, there's a lot of differences in avian genetics compared to mammalian, so I went with a mammalian example of something that has multiple different colors on the same, skin.
All right. Well, anyways, I don't know if this might have been a tangent.
It was a weird little tangent, but it falls into my area of educational expertise, so I'm willing to keep on going as long as you want. But yes, like, long story short, if you want different colors in your, for hair and eye, and I suppose even skin. I mean, you could do blue skin pigment. There are some people that have that. It's very rare, but you can, like, hey, mind if I borrow some of your genetics for a little while? Just bleed into this cup for me for a bit, and I'll be okay. Yeah, you can do that, and so, like, if I mean, heck, you want blue skin people, like, from the Avatar, you want green skin, you want also, I'm not going to say no to that. I mean, like, oh no, what's that going to do?
Well, okay, hang on, you're not going to say no to that, but what that means is some laboratory somewhere has to figure it out and, like, do some experiments.
It's not that difficult, and you just need to compare, like, the blue skin people to, like, the other pigments there.
And then in order to make it available to the population, you basically have to say, well, we will mess with your embryos, basically, and
currently
you have to work with fertility clinics or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we'll inject it into your baby, so you'll have a blue-haired baby.
Blue-haired, green-skinned baby.
Oh. I mean, isn't there other, like, people would choose things like, oh, well, I want my baby to be tall and smart and
well, so that's the thing, is
athletic.
I am very, very hesitant against doing anything related to brain genetics, because if you muck up even a little thing there, developmental problems down the road. But
how do you separate cosmetic stuff from stuff like mental abilities and athletics and stuff?
Well, so that's the thing, is athletics, I mean, I'm not so bad, like, you want to make certain your kids, like, not going to have some sort of, like, debilitating, muscular degeneration thing. Well, I'm okay with, getting that out of there if you don't want it. Mm-hmm. Provided you can guarantee that there is no benefit to having it. It's like, well, we've never found a person who benefits from having this in their system. But, I mean, like, what's going to go wrong if it's, oh no, you're the wrong color blue for your skin? I mean, like, how is that going to impact the person's life?
Well, no, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, how do you, like,
that's
how
my
do you
criteria.
Come down on imagine there's this biotech company who's like,
okay.
we're going to do this. We're going to do all these things. And, like, as a government or as a society, like, how do you tell that company what they're allowed to do and not to do? Based on whether or not it could impact the quality of life of the person should something go wrong, along the lines of what is the most likely thing that conceivable. But are they
wrong. Which
aren't
I believe
those
is
processes very similar, like in the fact that you're just taking genes in and out and sort of doing that?
No, that you can do some much higher end things with the new RNA, SNP genes.
Okay.
You put it in and it'll snip very precise locations compared to what it used to be. I mean, heck, when I was in grade school, it would take 35 minutes for some of these enzymes to cut DNA.
But how do you, do you have an inspector who goes in there and just makes sure that they're only snipping the right kind of code?
Oh, yes. I think this should be, inspected along the same lines that nuclear facilities are inspected.
But doesn't the inspector pretty much have to have the same level of expertise as the people who are actually doing the work?
Yeah.
Pretty much? Okay.
And the person who's inspecting the nuclear fissile materials in a nuclear power plant better have the same level of education there, too.
Yeah.
The guy who's monitoring, the chicken houses, better, understand the ethics, of raising chickens properly.
And okay, so
this is inhumane.
Next question though is, is there a bioethical consensus that exists out there about what's allowed and not allowed to be manipulated? Because it can't be just, Ryan thinks this is a good idea and that's a good idea. It has to be sort of.
We do have very good hearty debates at various seminars about this sort of stuff. That said, it's mostly the politicians that put it into law. So they're not at these debates. So you can get so much of the scientific consensus saying one thing, and then you wind up with, the politicians saying, no, my constituents are afraid of this. You can't do it at all.
Yeah. So, are you just going to trust it to the politicians? Is that
no? God, no. They're the most uneducated people of the entire system.
Yeah. So I don't get how do well, maybe you're not. Maybe you're just not thinking on that level. It's just not you're just thinking about how cool it would be.
What I want is a meritocracy of scientific individuals helping regulate the entire scientific body as a whole and forcing it away from both political and commercial endeavors.
Okay.
A lot of the magazines are publishing, having rushed publications and not enough peer review oversight. I would like to see that more heavily regulated as well. So some sort of like science council to help regulate this stuff out, to make sure the scientific method is being used and the ethics are being properly enforced. For that's going to require a lot of, and don't get me wrong, I mean, like, this isn't just because it increases my chance of getting a good job.
Right.
But, say, I do peer review for this stuff. No, it's like I believe that, like, the uneducated in this realm are not helping the situation, which would be the politicians, primarily.
Yeah.
And the people in like the magazines that aren't doing the full peer reviews and just publishing without that level of standard are not helping the industry or the sciences at all in that regard. They are actually hindering more than they're helping.
Right. Yeah.
Because every time one of those studies gets published and people say one thing and then it gets retracted because somebody was fudging the data, that undermines scientific credibility as a whole. Every time somebody remembers, like, oh, yeah, they had this nice miracle treatment sort of thing, and then, no, that's not how it goes. It's like, all those scientists, they don't even know what they're talking about. And that spreads across all the sciences. A little bit
I know
more
what you're saying as far as the public goes. Yes, that the public trust in science may get eroded.
And that is an essential part of society.
It's important. I think it's important. But also, like, I think science, the world of science, is a little bit more, I don't know how to say it, maybe self-contained. It's like scientists talking to each other.
They're a bit more of a clique going on. I won't lie on that.
Maybe a clique, but they also they will know when a paper's bad, or the sort of word gets around.
It takes a little time to analyze the data to such a degree. It's like, I have a little suspicion about how closely this data correlates to ideal values.
Yeah, and that's the idea of peer review and like competing, ideas, and people saying, well, no, I think you're wrong, and publishing their own paper.
I think you're wrong because of these 17 reasons, and I wasn't able to recreate the event in the lab myself.
Yeah.
Your ice, there's polywater? No, there was a thing that like back in the day that a Russian person put out. So he found a different form of water, different isotope of water that had different values. It didn't freeze at zero. It didn't freeze until farther lower. It didn't boil until much higher. He found a different isotope of water. It was crazy. And if you add a regular drop of water in there, it added the same properties.
Well, I know they use different isotopes of water in nuclear, like they use heavy water.
Yes, deuterium and tritium and all that stuff. But this was not the case. This was like crazy water. Turns out the guy was just getting some of his like bodily fluids in there, his like
little bit
sweat.
of oil in there.
Yeah, and that was grossly affecting it. And so like it took them years to figure this out because the guy, I found something amazing. I found a new version of water that's going to blow your freaking minds. And then it got published and everyone's like, oh my goodness. And then, it's like, oh my goodness, well, like what happens if this gets dropped into the ocean? Well, the entire ocean world's, water cycle change because of this self-replicating crazy water. And yeah, it turns out no, it was just bad scientific methodology. Test yourself more rigorously.
Well, but did any scientists actually be like, oh, let's look,
Yes, they did for years. Some of them were able to replicate it, others weren't. The ones that did proper procedure in the lab were not able to do it. The lesser scientists were able to recreate it, which caused an interesting situation whereby the lesser competency you had, the better your chances of replicating the events. And so only those who were really skilled were the ones being, left out, and it was like, I'm not able to do it. What am I doing wrong? It's like, nothing. You're the only ones not doing anything wrong. Yeah. Thank you. Although you're not going to know about this for another 4 years of self-doubt. So it's like, nah. So that's why I'm heavily peer review oriented on that sort of thing. And don't skimp on that at all.
Okay, sure.
That is. I believe proper peer review is at least as important as the actual scientific methodology.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and peer review and replication and all that stuff.
Yes, that's a wonderful weird tangent we've got off on.
Okay, yeah, we went on.
So let's just go on more personal notes. What have you been doing this week, Josh? Aside from arguing with me about laboratory practices.
Aside from nerdy topics. Well, let me see. I don't think I didn't log into Minecraft at all this week, which is, I know,
unbeliever.
I did. I went to two Yeah, two comedy shows this week. One I got to be I got a couple of minutes on stage.
Woo!
Doing 2 more next week, just in case anybody out there is in Victoria listening. It's at the Ratfish Lounge, which is in the Ramada on Gorge Street in Victoria, and that's Monday and Thursday. So yeah, you can come out and I may be on, depending on the week, but I did end up this coming week I get to be on twice. So
hooray!
So and I got to listen to a bunch of comedy, which is always fun. It's like people making up stories and jokes and things. So
dig it.
So that was pretty awesome. What else? Yeah, that's about it. I was gonna mention this earlier. I did I started a journal, another podcast, just a...
Are you been cheating on me, dude?
Well, there's the Alehouse podcast, which we've been doing about once a month.
That's okay. I'm not much of a drinker, so I'm all right with you doing your own thing over there. I'm not that jealous, dude.
And then
you got needs I can't meet.
And then I wanted to have a podcast where I could be a little more, adult, not adult, but
Dude, we were just talking about
language.
Scientific methodology, and consensus. What's more adult than that, man?
I mean swearing. That's
okay.
What I mean.
Well, if you want, I can start dropping F-bombs when I talk about bad scientists in the future. I want to when I talk about bad scientists. I want to drop all the letters of the alphabet as bombs, man. I will find swears if that right letter, so I can drop them.
But I don't know if I'll keep up with that one. It's just a little maybe side project for a little while and just a little bit of journaling and stuff. So.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's just another thing to do. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I've been doing.
But you've been really focused on that stuff. I mean, you've been working on your comedy routine.
I have. I've been. Yeah. If you look in my window, you'll see me practicing, just talking to myself, basically.
I mean, that's the thing is there's a lot that can be done with the proper, head tilt, arm, language thing that can really convey that simple words just cannot.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, there have been times I've had people just bust up laughing at work from something I said. Everyone stops what they're doing, has a good laugh, and then someone tries retelling the joke, when a coworker gets in, oh man, you should have heard Ryan, he had everyone howl and say, and he gives the same line, and it's just yeah, I guess it was funny at the time.
You had to be there.
But that's the thing is he said the exact same setup, the exact same thing. It's just apparently how I rolled it off my tongue, just as a flippant, off the cuff comment that everyone had just howling with laughter. And so yeah, there's a lot to be done about proper body language that I believe can always aid in good comedy.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess I've been listening to a lot of podcasts too. A lot of comedy podcasts are really common, so I'm discovering new ones constantly. I'm oh, I didn't know this guy existed. Oh.
So is there long running comedy podcasts, or do you just do comedy routines in a podcast sort of form?
Well, it's similar to what we're doing now.
Okay.
Sometimes it's one person, sometimes it's a few people. And they do really try to be funny, which we try to do somewhat here too.
I like them funny to flow naturally. I don't like to try and force it. I don't set up a line ahead of time.
Yeah, what we try to do is be interesting, I guess, and talk about stuff that we think is cool. And
bad scientists. Yeah. Polywater, man.
Yeah.
Woo.
But yeah, sometimes if it's a comedy podcast, these guys are really going for just whatever is funny in a conversation. And sometimes it gets funny, and sometimes it's just people because it is an hour of basically improvised, nobody does a scripted podcast that I know of. It's just talking to people, so sometimes it gets kind of personal.
Well, I guess there are scripted podcasts, but those tend to work along the new equivalency of radio programs.
Yeah. So I think it's very similar to we're right in the middle of that pack. We're just doing what everyone else is. Well, I mean, we're doing our own thing, of course, but yeah, and it's very the format.
And we thank you for listening to us on that sort of thing. I mean, you like us. You really like us, not just all the others out there. You like this particular blend of crazy, informative, and tangential speak we have.
And I'm not sure how many people there are. The other thing is there are other gaming podcasts out there, but I think we have our own angle on it and our own personal experience with it. So.
A bit more of a higher meta approach to it.
Hopefully, That's what we're going for. So yeah, that's basically listening to podcasts and doing comedy. So that's what I've been up to.
Dig it.
Yeah, how about you?
Well, the Spider event in the Marvel Avengers Alliance Facebook game is coming to an end, and I got there's a daily like roulette wheel you can spin, and there's a very small chance of getting 1,000 units of the currency you need to go through there, the unstable ISO 8. I got that twice on this event. It's like, I am loaded. I've got so much stuff, I don't think I'll be able to use it by the end of it. But I've just been blowing through it what I can every day. I've gotten so much more progress on this one than I usually do. Haven't gotten everything. The random number god has never been heavily in my favor. So I might have to, spend some gold at a later date when this item is on sale. If I really want it. And I do. What I really want is the Spider-Man Dr. Octopus, the Superior Spider-Man. I like his style, I like his abilities, and I wouldn't mind picking him up. Even though I currently have 3 other spider folk, just off the top of my head, that I can wind up using. I like his style, his charisma, his motif. So that said, I really don't think I'm going to get it. I'm going to have to get very lucky with my random rolls in the next 24 hours. But I tried, and I had a lot of fun. And I got 4 stars in this map, and 4 stars there, and I got a chance to do this and try that, and really beat on the enemy. Because I didn't have those limitations. Like, oh no, I'm out of the resources. I guess I'll have to do something else for the rest of today. It's like, no. Whatever I want to do in that part of the story, I can do it. I just roll through. That's a very nice thing, something I don't get a lot of opportunities to do. So, yay for the random number god giving me the super abundant resources.
Nice.
I would have preferred, gold currency or something, but whatever. I'll take what I can get. Otherwise, Minecraft has gone on an interesting tangent for me.
Oh. Yeah.
Last week I said I wanted some more things. I wanted to get the Eldritch tab in the Thaumcraft mod. And so I did some research stuff, and I went and did some crazy things, and so I got a little, just insane enough to get it, and I did the stuff there. It has come with a negative side effect. Every once in a while, a large, crazy mist sweeps through the area, and a horrible, fell creature from on the other side of reality tries to kill me. So I'm like, whoa! I better up my game. I mean, my weapons are made out of, I think it's just bronze. So I'm working with Bronze Age weaponry, and I'm technically running around in cloth armor. It is very low protection. So I'm like, enough of this. I'm going to do things right. I'm going to be a real Minecraft player. I got to get the good stuff. And I got the Tinker's mod, so that means I need Manulin, which means I have to go to the Nether. And I explored the Nether, and I learned how to smack the blasts back to the gas, and I shoot them with my bows. And I was kill them. I got 11 gas tiers right now. I mean, like I don't think I'll really ever use them, but I keep them right next to the Eldritch Eye I got off of killing one of the Eldritch Horrors. So it's like there's tiers next to my eye, and it kind of works. Oh,
I see. Yeah.
So it's I guess it's kind of nice to pick up, and it's a nice little trophy for what I've done. And I did it. I needed 16 units of Manulin, which meant through the smeltery I needed to find 8 units of like Ardite and Cobalt. And they spawn rarely, and they spawn in vein sizes of 1 square. So I really had to maneuver around the map and just look, and where the heck is this? Where the heck is this? And then I was a double dummy. Because I'm looking at in the overworld, I'm thinking, these little fire bushes that Thaumcraft has, like what do they do? And I realized, I can like use them to get a blaze powder. Wait a minute, blaze powder. I have a reverse construction mod that basically undoes any recipe you can create. Well, within reason, and most of the Thaumcraft enchantment stuff doesn't reverse, but whatever. And so, I was like, wait a minute, 2 blaze powders can be formed back into a blaze rod. A blaze rod is needed for alchemy. So I make an alchemy thing, and I'm all happy. I get everything all together. Oh boy, potions and all this. Oh, what do you mean I need nether wart for basically everything?
You need nether wart.
And nether wart is only found in nether fortresses. So now not only do I have to search for more Manulin if I want to upgrade my bow, because I gotta say my weapon is mighty sweet. But I want to get a good bow going too. So I'm like, oh, dang it! Now I got to search for like a fortress, go through the fortress, kill horrible blazes just to try and find some nether wart. And it's like, On the other hand, nether wart will allow me to do a nether wart farm. And now that I've got golems, I could have a very good supply of nether wart. But I started looking into the mods for brewing. I was like, what sort of brewing mods can I have? Can I just like add a mod that doesn't require nether wart? Could I find some other things that will allow in there? And now I'm looking into maybe doing beer and wine brewing sort of thing. Find a spot that does hops. Find some spots that'll give me some nice grapevine. And so I'm like, ooh, that would be pretty darn nice. I haven't put it in, but I'm thinking about it now. So I'm like, well, if I put that in, plus the nether wart, and with my golem upgrades, like I have got so many carrots. I've got like a full-size carrot farm, like a 9x9 with a little spot in the center for my golems to... One will automatically harvest a mature crop, and the other one will collect the stuff up and put it in there. That chest is overflowing. I got a golem just going around, smashing up carrots and replanting one, and like there's no room for the golem to put anything in there. That stuff's going to waste. Mm-hmm. I have more carrots than I can conceivably use. So I'm thinking, well, if I'm going to have golems doing this automated farm, maybe a full-sized farm isn't what I need. Maybe some tiny, just maybe a little 4x4 plot is all I need for most of my conventional crop stuff.
Okay, yeah.
So maybe I'll redesign that. I'm not happy with my chickens, being all cooped up as they are. I kind of like free-range chickens. So maybe I should because I've redesigned my vertical farming thing before. This is the second version. Maybe I need a third version.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about that now because I'm going to the Nether and I've got this here and I need to upgrade that. But my big thing is the weapon. It was like, the tinker stuff. Like my previous weapon, it was a bronze cleaver. Hack them up, get some heads. It did 13 damage. It's not bad. It's a fairly respectable weapon, sort of thing. This new one, because I was out and about exploring the Nether, I was getting lots of Nether cores. That stuff is just it's as bad as this. Like weeds, man. It's just like, oh, there's more of it. Oh, there's more of it. Next thing you know, I've got 7 stacks in my inventory, and I don't have a single block of either of the items I was really looking for. And so I was like, well, what do? Apparently in the Tinker stuff, you can use it to add sharpness or increase the damage. And I can increase it a little bit further, but I'm going to need a nether star and like a block of diamond to get more enchantment slots to put on there. But... the weapon I've got, it was just so scary, I had to give it like a Lovecraftian name. Nazar Olak is my horrible weapon of pain.
Okay. Does that mean something?
No, I just did a random generator for something that sounded right. And it sounds like it means something.
Sure.
But with a running leap, sort of thing, like, how you do more damage when you charge, and you do more damage when you're coming down. With a running leap, I can kill an Enderman in a single blow. I have faced 4 creepers coming at me at once and had no blow-ups, no issues, no worries. Snicker, snack, hack and slash, and bam, bam, bang, bang. Like, for the longest time, I only had 3 creeper heads. They're kind of hard to get. I kind of prefer taking them apart from a distance because, oh my, I don't want them to blow up. Now I have 9 of them. I've got rows of them sitting up in my enchantment area, and they're looking like super, intimidating awesome. And I've got so many heads. But I'm getting addicted to it. I looked up a mod. How do I get more heads? And there's a nice mod called Head Crumbs. And any creature with a head. Apparently it's meshable with Thaumcraft. Anything with a head you can kill there has a chance at dropping a head.
Okay.
I want heads. I want so many heads right now.
Yeah.
And I can get that. I can get spider heads. I can get cow heads. I can get chicken heads. I can get villager heads. I can get all heads. All heads will be mine. I kind of want that, and I'm maybe this is me role-playing the insanity of my character a little bit, but I want more heads. I want more heads to line the place. I'm building a dungeon. I'm going to wind up getting like a mod for monster generators. I'm going to imprison the zombies. Yeah. I'm going to imprison the skeletons. I'm going to farm them when I want. They're mine.
Yeah.
The whole place is going to be lit with glowing skulls. Because my archaeology mod gives me skulls all, and you just put a torch in there. It's like a pumpkin. Pop them up on there. It'll be my glowing skull fortress. So I don't know if it's me going down that dark path or me role-playing going down that dark path. But I am clearly showing signs of a little bit more character craziness.
Okay.
In my defense, though, I journeyed to the town just west of where I normally am. And I completely disrupted a Crimson Cult sect that was just on the outskirts of town terrorizing villagers.
They were terrorizing the villagers? What were they doing to the villagers?
If villagers got too close to them, the clerics that were around sucking energy from a node weren't doing anything, but their warriors would come up and just hack and slash anyone who got too close.
Ooh.
And they had a group aggro sort of thing. You aggro one, you'd aggro like 3 or 4 of them. But I was taking them apart in 3 blows apiece.
Right.
I went through them. I was taking the brunt of those fireballs as the clerics came at me, and I killed every one of them. I killed an entire evil sect of crazy madmen.
Oh, well, good. Good for you. You're a hero.
I like to think so, and not just because I wanted the resources of the altar there, and the stuff I could get off the drops. I was like, no, with this weapon, I have a lot of power. I should be doing at least some good with this. I got to start killing bad guys. I got. If I'm going to be a flawed, crazy man, I'll be a flawed, crazy hero.
All right.
If I'm going to have a fortress of glowing skulls, it'll be for all the right reasons. I'll imprison the worst things around in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least that's my logic. I don't know if it's a real logic, but it seems to follow suit with what goes on in the Thaumonomicon in the game.
Sure.
So I had a lot of fun with that. And it's just so nice to be able to stay outdoors, because I really haven't done an overnight thing since I added in the Mo Creatures mob. In my previous world where I had my big city, I'd stay out all night. My daughter would point out, oh, there you go, Daddy Zombie. There you go, creeper, skeleton. And she'd point that out because that was really all there was. I didn't go for the Endermen. I just let them be. They're neutral mobs for me, whatever. But I was killing everyone. I was staying out all night. But now with the crazy things they've got, and the Mo Creatures stuff, that was pretty dangerous. But I killed a flying horse one morning. I don't know what the hop was up with the horse, but it dropped like 3 leather, so I was like, fine by me. It was bat-winged, and it was burning in the sunlight, so I assume it was evil, and I was right to have killed it.
Okay.
Yeah. There's only one thing I have been unable to defeat, and that's the werewolves. It said in the game for the Mo Creatures, werewolves are very dangerous to kill without a silver weapon. And I thought, dude, I'm killing an Enderman in a single leaping charge. I should be able to kill myself a werewolf through mass damage. No, I can't. I actually had to run away from a werewolf.
Huh.
But that's okay, because I can kill silver skeletons that pop up, and they have the chance of dropping the silver sword I will need to just slay that werewolf good.
Okay. Yeah,
or I could just wait till daytime when they turn back into an average, air quotes, average, commoner, and I can kill them, like, as per normal. But they have really bad drops as like a human. Right. Just like some sticks and just little things like that, and it's like, I want to kill a werewolf, buddy. I want the real deal. So I'm having a lot of fun staying out at night and killing things, collecting their heads and putting them up in my fortress.
Very good.
That's my big thing this week. However, we did just recently do one big thing, I suppose.
Yeah.
Which is leading into the main topic for this week.
All right.
We watched 1998's The Shadow.
The Shadow, the feature film version.
With Alec Baldwin. There's a lot of decent named stars. Tim Curry's in there. Jonathan Winters, the comedian, was there. He has fairly recently passed away.
Gandalf was in there.
Yeah. Ian McKellen was there. All sorts of and it's like, do you like Everybody Loves Raymond? Raymond's dad was in there. He was a lot of fun. He was a taxi cab driver. You'll love him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great movie, I think. This was my first time to see it since the theater, so I haven't seen it since 1998. You have never seen it before.
I don't think I ever saw it before.
How much did you know of The Shadow before the movie?
Well, I only knew that The Shadow was one of these archetypal heroes that was very early. So he was an inspiration for people like Batman and stuff like that, dark heroes.
And so what did you think of the movie then, Josh?
What did I think? Well, I thought it was fun. It was cartoony at times, and it was a bit silly, but I enjoyed it.
All superhero stories are kind of a little bit silly at some points.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, it had that Batman camp feeling where all the bad guys are all wearing the same kind of, like, they were in this...
Keep in mind, this was in 1998, before the big Spider-Man, X-Men combo hit, and everybody realized superheroes sell, and we're in the midst of the superhero movie golden era. So this is prior to that.
Earlier, but yeah, it was because in this particular version of it, I don't know if it goes all the way back to the original radio,
the magazines and
comics
radio
and
serials,
like,
yeah.
But in this version, the bad guys are all samurai, or not
They're
samurai.
Khan warriors.
Mongols,
yeah,
like from Genghis Khan era.
Or at least dressed up thereof.
Like, that Chinese armor, like, warrior. So it looks very weird with having them kind of running around New York City, and nobody cares.
But that's the thing, they have the ability to cloud men's minds.
Well, yeah,
that explains why no one's looking. Plus, it is in New York City. If there's one place you're going to walk down with full, Mongolian war armor on, and have nobody look twice, it's going to wind up being New York.
I guess so. Although, like a policeman wouldn't just be like, "Hey, you can't have like a samurai sword and like everything like that." And but the other thing, though, like what I would ask is, okay, sure, they can cloud men's minds, so maybe that's why people don't notice. But why are they dressed like that in the first place? Like, why are they being like ancient Mongolian warriors in New York City? Like, why don't
in
they
1920? So it's not like they could have dressed up in like modern, infiltration, high tech, spyware and all that.
I guess that's true.
But they were a little anachronistic at best. I think that's because the villain, I guess technically a spoiler, wanted to like recreate like the new Khanish Empire sort of thing. He wanted to conquer the rest of the world that Genghis never did.
Yeah.
And then take over where Genghis did and prove himself better.
Yeah, and again, that's a very, nowadays we see that as very comic book trope, is the big bad who wants to take over the entire world and use atomic bombs to do so. That's very vanilla plot.
It wasn't an atomic bomb, it was an implosion explosive, sort of charged device. But atomic bomb has a nice ring to it.
I guess that was a spoiler, sorry.
Not really. Nothing that, the IMDb won't point out in like 30 seconds. It even says, I think, on the back of the box, so yeah, no worries. It was a little crazy that way, but I mean, that's how they did things back then. And so you could say, not that it was a little weird that they were dressed up, Khan, warriors, but they were staying true to that I guess pre-golden age of superheroes, where that's how things went. That's what they were doing, because villains had to dress up and be different and be notable.
Yeah, because in comic books, you need that. Otherwise, everyone just looks the same, especially if it's black and white, and you only have so much space, so much ink.
4 colors at best, and usually black and white back then.
Yeah.
So I mean, in which case, I'm willing to say that stuff was weird. Don't get me wrong, it was like I'd have preferred to have seen him in a bit more modern gear. But if that's the way the guy wants to play it, and he's really kind of stuck in the past, because he really was one to follow, with the theme. I will create the new, Khanate, empire.
He does, but did you notice there was one scene where just for some reason he was just in a business suit?
We did admire Lamont Cranston's outfit and all that, and he even said in the scene where he complimented on his tie, he said that Lamont Cranston, in his darker days before he became heroic, he was a mentor to him. He was like an inspiration, and so this could be him trying to like, oh, this is what my idol, this is what my mentor is doing, sort of thing. Maybe I should try to be like him. And so that, I guess, in the scene where he's, dressed up in the modern era sort of thing, they don't exactly, come off, just like shake hands and part ways happy. So it's like, oh, fine, I tried to, be like you, it's like, fine, that's not going to work, I'll be me. Which I think is a good thing to be.
Good lesson for villains.
Good lesson for everybody. You have to be comfortable in your own skin. If that means dressing up in old-fashioned Khan, warrior armor, be like the Mongol, elite warrior guards of the old days, all the power to you, I suppose. I mean, I don't suppose, I support, activating a nuclear device, but, if you want to wear crazy clothes, go for it. Yeah. Wear crazy clothes, man.
One of the things that, I don't know if this should be a complaint or if it's just comes along with the territory, but I didn't feel like the main character, the hero, the Shadow, I didn't feel like his story really hung together, because he has a dark past where he was basically a bad guy, right? Spoiler alert, first 30 seconds, he is an opium drug lord. Yeah, and he was super what was the word? Ruthless, right?
Ruthless, and just absolutely horrendous.
Yeah,
human
no
being.
Conscience, no nothing.
No
like that.
Pity, nothing like that. Ming the Merciless was taking notes on this dude.
And then early on in the movie, there's this conversion moment where it's like, okay, now you're going to be a good guy. Like some supernatural like monk tells him, okay,
you don't have a choice.
Yeah,
you are getting redeemed, buddy.
And that was like, oh, okay. And then now he's suddenly in New York and he's doing like this
7
vigilante
years
justice
later,
stuff.
Yeah.
And that didn't really I didn't believe that.
That may have just been, getting up to speed sort of things. Like, okay, what's up with the Shadow? I mean, a lot of people haven't heard of the Shadows, stuff in a long time. So maybe we should just go over the beginning sort of thing, and just ramp up to the modern day sort of thing, and then just kind of really work it from there.
Yeah, and I guess that's the problem with adapting like a very long running series of comics and radio plays and everything to like one self-contained film.
Because they'll have just the Shadow is the guy who does this, and then later on they'll delve into bits of his backstory.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I would have dug, just the quick, dry opening of like him, being the hero, and then going back with visions of what he was like in his past, as this person from his past, resurfaces the memories of his previous life.
Yeah, and that's the other thing.
It would have been a little harder to work with, and I wouldn't have fit with the standard comic book style of the day, and I don't think they were into taking that big of risk back then. You could probably roll with that very well nowadays. The techniques and stuff they've got, and the audience is much more willing to buy that sort of style. So I guess that may have just been part of the '90s movie style. Like you could not have gotten away with so many flashbacks.
The other thing is, I didn't really understand. Like, it's funny because I feel like with somebody like Batman, I'm like, okay, he's got a connection to the city because his parents were, important in the city, and he's carrying on that legacy. Plus, they got killed by some criminals, so he's, that's why he's against, sort of that corrupt part of Gotham. So that's why he's a bit of a vigilante. But the Shadow, I didn't understand his motivation for liking New York.
Explain it quickly. Sort of thing in the conversion scene, and then they follow with a little exposition, like a dialogue there. Am I in hell? Not yet. By that, I believe the monk was implying that New York is hell. It is so dirty and so rife with sin that it is hell. Okay. And so he this is his salvation thing, as it says in there. The price of his salvation was to constantly be fighting the forces of evil, and stopping its spread, so no one gets as bad as he was. So in that case, why is he in New York? It's because that is the worst place on earth for sins and criminal mob bosses and all that. And maybe it was, maybe it wasn't.
Okay, yeah, I see that, and that's interesting.
It could have been explained a little bit better. He could have constantly, when he's the Shadow, refer to I rule this hell sort of thing. He could have done a line like that where you can see that his mindset of this is his mansion, his wonderful mansion in the first ring of hell. He could have referred to it as, I suppose. But I don't know how well that would have met with the classic style of the Shadow. And so maybe they just decided to have the monk assume it that way, and then he falls along with the guy because hey, you redeemed my soul. Now I have a conscience thanks to you. Thumbs up, buddy. I'll do what you say.
Yeah.
What I really found interesting about the Shadow was the mix between his mercy and his mercilessness. As Lamont Cranston, someone finds out his dual identity. He doesn't kill them. That is a legitimate threat to his well-being and his security. But he shows mercy and doesn't kill the person. And not just because the person happens to wear amazingly designed dresses with plunging necklines and tell them wonderfully erotic stories of her dreams. Now, it's not because of that. I mean, he's actually showing mercy. As the Shadow, he hurts people. He shoots. He's got 2 guns. He's willing to... Although he doesn't really use the guns to actually shoot people very often. He's much more of a fan of punching someone in the jaw. But he is a very merciless figure towards the criminals. He will force them to do things they don't want. You will go and you will commit to yourself to the cops and say that you killed the police officer. You'll admit to this and you'll tell them this and you will face the punishment of justice. that's a fairly merciful as he goes, but otherwise he forces people, through. He's got mind powers. So just so you out there, if you don't know much about the Shadow, he can get into your head, and he forces people to do things like effectively commit suicide, run and jump out the window.
Yeah, like he has telepathic powers, like he can do mind control.
That's how he turns like invisible, effectively, sort of thing. Is he clouds men's mind. Yeah. So they can't see him, but they can never. He can never force them to not see his shadow, because the shadow isn't him. He can only get people to forget that he's there, and so that's why he's called the Shadow. That's all of him you see, and I think that's pretty boss. I mean, that works as a pretty good story this day and age. Worked even better back in the day. I was like, oh my god. But yeah, he will get in your head, and he will like I believe heavily in the sanctity of free agency. If a person doesn't want to do something, they should not be forced to do that. Mm-hmm. There's only a few slight restrictions on that, and that usually involves mental competency issues. If you have serious psychotic issues, I believe that you should probably seek medication and proper psychiatric treatment for that, whether or not you want it, because it's for the best of everyone around you to not have a psychotic episode, right? So I found it a little weird that I actually liked the Shadow, when he, got into somebody's head and forced them to, like, jump out a window. Which is weird, because, I found, the Khan Emperor, the new Empire, or to be, the Khan, he'd get people to commit horrific deaths. He had somebody jump off the Empire State Building, because the guy, compared his clothing to that of a lady. That's a bit of an overcall, that sort of thing. So maybe that's why I see the difference. Like, dude, that wasn't warranted. You just have yourself kiss your Navy buddy there, buddy, and maybe that's all you need to do. So yeah, you say I dress up like a girl, I'll have you act like one. Ha ha ha.
Okay.
Having you jump off of the Empire State Building to your death.
I think that's a villainous thing to do.
It's villainous, and definitely paints him as a horrible villain. But that's I guess like just a bit of an overkill sort of thing. He's going somewhere, and a cabbie has to write down the destination point where he dropped the guy off at. Regulations, and so he gets the guy to convince him to drive straight into a tanker, and because this is like Hollywood, everything explodes, huge fire. It's like. Wouldn't it have been easier just to cloud his mind and tell him to forget and, not write down the location or write down a different location? Like, yeah, you dropped me off 4 blocks away.
Yeah.
And
did we watch Highlander together?
No, I don't think we have.
Oh, okay. Because Highlander was another one of these ones where sort of supernatural entities converge on New York City, the darkest city in the world. And, yeah, they have this whole theme of New York being so, dark, and stuff happens.
So what happens if the Shadow decapitates a Highlander? Does he become an immortal, telepath? Wouldn't that rock out?
Yeah, the immortals, they don't have telepathy, do they?
Not normally, although some have been known to exhibit abilities in the TV series.
Okay, yeah.
Which I believe is possibly my preferred canon for the Highlanders. All the various mythologies they have. It was long running. It was decently well done. The only loophole was, where is this guy hiding all the bodies?
Yeah.
They decided to ignore that simply because it would cause too many issues. So I guess apparently when you decapitate a Highlander, their body just starts dissolving away when no one's looking.
Like a video game.
Kinda, yeah. It was kind of a necessary thing to explain. Like, dude, where are you putting all these corpses? The answer: don't eat the hot dogs. But yeah, I mean, so I suppose this gave me a little bit more nuance in where I draw my line of the sanctity of free agency. In that, I guess mental commands, so long as they're not, excessively out of proportion, they're okay. Which isn't good, because I mean, I didn't say anything about, Obi-Wan Kenobi's, how dare you, you control the mind of that stormtrooper into, saying these aren't the droids you're looking for. So maybe, I have to start reconsidering exactly where my stance is on this concept of free agency.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other thing about free agency is sort of, you can almost do the same thing with, holding a gun to somebody, or saying, now you're going to do this, or else I shoot you, or else I shoot somebody you love, or something like that. So.
Well, to a degree, I mean, you look at the cabbie driver as he's going towards the tanker truck, and he's driving happy. It's like, oh boy, like, well, it's a good thing this guy noticed I was out of gas. He was on a full tank of gas. It's a good thing this guy noticed I was out of gas. And he's driving there like everything's right in the world. And that was perhaps the worst bit for me, is like, this guy thinks what he's doing is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, because I guess, like, the bad guy could have just been like, oh, okay, well, I don't want you as a witness, so how about I just stab you or something, a little less, I don't know.
Well, the thing is, it would have been just as easy for him to say, like, you will write down the location 3 blocks down and 1 block over as to where you drop me off.
Yeah.
And instead it's like, no, I really don't like what you were doing there, so go kill yourself.
Yeah, but I mean, is that why we go to the movies, to see those like wild and crazy, like, oh, look at that cab guy, driving into the thing and explosion and.
That was I do believe it was like the biggest explosion in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't need to see big explosions for a movie. I mean, sure, explosions have that primal fun to them. But seeing that abuse of power was, I guess I really do have to paint you as an unredeemable villain.
Yeah, I guess it shows him as sort of sadistic and theatrically evil.
Oh, yes, definitely. Well, I mean, that's kind of the thing. It's like when you have a history based on the radio stuff, you have to be theatrical. You really have to sell your evil, because you can't just be menacingly evil by hunched posture and, like Monty Burns gesticulating hands. You're not going to see how evil I am just here on this podcast right now, aside from my voice.
How would you do that in a radio play? I guess the cabbie would have his own internal monologue, something about, like, oh, you're right, I am out of fuel. Oh, I think I'll keep driving. Oh, I see a fuel truck in front of me. I'll just step on the gas to get to it.
That's a lot of fuel for me there. And so, yeah, you'd have him narrate his own death.
And then you can have some sound effects of explosions.
Boom, going on there and all that sort of thing. And that, I mean, that's one of the weird things, too, is they showed it very quickly in the beginning of the movie for some of the theatrics that converted over. But one of the things about the Shadow was that he had a car that had a silent stealth mode. You would not hear the engine running. It was completely silent. And this one has like a taxi, where it's got like a hidden light mode. It turns off the lights, and even the headlights kind of disappear under. Oh my goodness! Like headlights that can pop up. Oh, how futuristic!
Yeah, it's like 30 years ahead of its time.
Well, exactly. But and the interesting thing is, like, now you can get an engine that's silent. It's called an electric engine.
Yeah.
And so what's weird is they wound up technically predicting the future, but for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, and he had a couple of other like gadgets that you probably wouldn't have seen in the 30s, but would be a little more.
A ring that
nowadays.
glowed through, I guess it was like sent a radio signal and it glowed when it needed them. Like, the bat signal's good for intimidation. The average criminal knows Batman's on the prowl when the bat signal's up in the sky. When somebody needs the Shadow, they send the right message through the right way, and a person sends like a radio signal to
his
the
ring
ring.
vibrates.
His ring glows, and it's like, the Shadow is needed.
Yeah, I guess if like for new heroes, like the new current version of Batman wouldn't need a signal. It just has to have an iPhone.
Well, I remember the Batman as a series from a few years back. It was the Batman. It was that controversial Joker, the one that was really physical, good combatant sort of thing. And in that one, instead of like a light going up in the air sort of thing, he would get a text and it'd be like like a bat signal.
Bat signal text.
Yeah, effectively just like going up on his phone. I have to make an excuse as to why I need to leave now. And so that was basically the same sort of thing, but they did it back in 1998, which was effectively like back in 1920 something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, wait! It couldn't have been in the standard 20s, because that was during Prohibition, and people were drinking like crazy around there. There was like martini. Yeah, Cranston was getting like 2 martinis every time he stopped by the lounge, so it would have had to be after World War I, but not during Prohibition. So we'd have to figure out, maybe it was in the 30s then. I'd have to sit down and work out when it was supposed to happen. But
right.
Yeah, it was back in the wonderful heyday of America before World War II. And one of the people drinking was the chief of police. So I'm pretty certain if Prohibition had been in place, he would have had to remain sober, because you got to maintain that standard.
Oh yeah. That's true.
Now here's the question I have. Lamont Cranston can cloud the minds of men, and he's been seen doing that to make sure that like the Shadow isn't investigated upon. Like he's at the wonderful what was it called, the Cobalt Club?
Right.
Yeah, the Cobalt Club. He's with his uncle, like the head, chief of police sort of thing. And I got him. The Shadow's apparently been involved in this here. This time tomorrow, I will have a task force set up to investigate him. And then it goes back to that thing where everything's in shadow about you, but your eyes to show that you're doing psychic powers or something mysterious is going on. Morticia Addams has it all the time, but they do it for whenever Lamont Cranston's doing telepathic.
Yeah, whenever
stuff.
he uses his brain powers.
Yeah. And so he's you are not going to investigate. So he's shown manipulating the mind of his
Jedi thing.
Yeah, his mind. These aren't the droids you're looking for, sort of thing. And I guess it's a good reason to explain why the Shadow stuff is oh no, the Shadow doesn't really exist. He's just a fictional thing invented by the media to help sell stories and people listen. It's really a lot of people doing little things on there, and it's being conflated up through hyperbole. Darn you reporters, that sort of thing. But here's my question. He's shown doing that fairly easily and readily on his uncle. Is that really his uncle? Or did he just make him believe that Lamont Cranston is his nephew?
I think that's likely that, he's not. Because he came from Tibet.
Well, he wasn't born and grown in Tibet. Apparently after World War I, he was kind of hard in the soul and spent some time over in Tibet being a ruthless drug lord. And then he wound up coming back, So depending on the date, 1918 for the end of World War I, sad 7 years. Yeah, we'll likely had to have been in the 30s by
7 years in Tibet?
Yeah, they never really mention it, but he did spend apparently 7 years out there.
Yeah.
Plus, I guess, whatever time he spent, as the drug lord, because he spent time training. But yeah, you have this weird situation whereby he's I'm not really, related to you, but you think I am. Everyone thinks I am because I keep clouding their minds and telling them this is the truth.
Yep.
And that's technically a violation of the truth, and which I also hold dear. I mean, previous in this iteration, I ranted about bad science, and that's effectively the spreading of untruth.
Yeah.
In which case, this untruth was for a greater purpose. It made sure that he was able to operate as the Shadow without having to worry about having these two forces of good, the police and the Shadow, fighting each other. They, with what he was doing, the two of them were providing a much more unified front, although the police weren't fully aware of how he was manipulating things to create this unified front against crime and sin.
Well, I feel like it's a similar deal to what Gotham has with it, because the police department is kind of good in theory, but they also have a lot of corrupt.
Well, that's the thing is, once the comic code restrictions got repealed, oh my goodness, it has been said some of the most corrupt cops in all of America are in New Orleans. I don't hold that against you guys. It's just apparently how things are.
All our New Orleans listeners.
Yeah. I don't hold that against you, especially if you're a New Orleans police officer. I'm not saying you have to be corrupt. I'm just saying, according to the studies, that is where the highest rate of corruption is amongst the police forces. But apparently Gotham makes them look like a boys' choir of saints.
Yeah, and that's why you need somebody who's kind of off the grid to enforce certain stuff.
You will to actually enforce the laws and punish the criminals.
Even though both the Shadow and Batman, they seem to do a lot of work and never really seem to make progress in their cities.
I think that's because, by and large, they're focused much more personally. I will attack this criminal. I will stop this thing, rather than working against the roots. I always will work on the line that Bruce Wayne can do more good for Gotham than Batman can.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Wayne can set up situations that will prevent people from pursuing that life of crime if he has the proper stuff set up. A lot of people call us, the conservative parts in America will say it's a bunch of liberal hippie, crud. But there actually are studies showing you make sure the kids are doing proper stuff. There's a spot for them so that they're not wandering the streets. Keep them out of the gang lifestyle. Provide them with free after-school sports thing. Make sure they're able to get watched, properly and supervised so that the parents can get full jobs, so that the parents won't have to resort to crime in order to, help make rent money this month. With those things there, people don't naturally tend towards crime. Nobody sits down, looks at their SATs and go, criminal genius is really where I'm settled in for. I kind of wanted to go for veterinarian, but look at these SATs. I really would be a fool not to go into organized crime. Crime is where you wind up going when you can't do better. when the system fails you and you have to make ends meet, you usually wind up going to crime. That's how things go. So Bruce Wayne could do a lot more good for Batman in the long term by making sure these systems and these things are set up through the Bruce Wayne Foundation. Mm-hmm. Or I guess the Thomas and Martha Wayne Foundation. I believe that's what he calls it for most of his charitable goods. Batman, a vigilante going out there and, beating up, criminals, not going to do a heck of a lot of good. He will stop the stuff and make them think twice, but that only helps, for them going into more lucrative crimes. I imagine Gotham probably, as Batman operates, sees a downswing in more overt crimes, less muggers, but more identity theft, less bank robbers, but more money laundering schemes. The stuff Batman can't just automatically see, which is also why I think Oracle is a great superhero, because she can see those things that Batman can't as he's out on patrol. Which is why I'm always saddened when I keep hearing Barbara Gordon as Batgirl. They rebooted the universe. She's Batgirl now. She didn't get crippled. She didn't become the Oracle. There is that void happening in the Bat family. No one's monitoring the cybercrime coming through Gotham. Huh. Which is, I believe, a shame, because, it's not just the cybercrime happening there. Someone's got to go bust heads, in real life. Oh, hey, look, there's Batman. There's, Cassandra Cain, Batgirl. There's 3 different kinds of Robins. There's the Red Hood. Oh, hey, look, we'll put Nightwing in there, too. There's a lot of people that can do that. There was only one Oracle for following that sort of data trail online.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
So sad as I am to say, I missed that. Fortunately, the Shadow doesn't have to worry about that stuff because he's working, in the world of pneumatic tubes. People don't text him, the people that are in on the know, because he saves lives not just for altruistic purposes. He does it to create a network of people with I need you to tell me this. I'm not the Batman ultra genius. I'm not, I don't know everything. I'm good at, clouding men's minds and, and fighting criminals. I need to know about atomic stuff, and meteorological events here. So I've got this person here, I've got this person there. I've got a connection. I've got a network, and I find that a lot more plausible. Because on the one hand, it's there's a very good reason for me to save your life. You can give me information at a later date, and it means that he doesn't have to be the omni-intelligent person. He just needs to know who to know.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's why it sort of reminded me a little bit of it might be something like a CIA or FBI kind of deal where it's more of an organization, like the Shadow.
Well, kind of, I guess, like an Illuminati, FBI, CIA sort of thing, where it's a secret organization.
Yeah, or even I guess just almost like a gang in a way. Because they have that ring as a symbol.
Yeah. Spoiler alert: you get saved by the Shadow. He gives you a ring. Apparently no one questions the ring. You're allowed to wear it wherever you want. No one questions it. I really do want to watch the movie again, not just for the good story and all that, but just to see how many people in the background have rings. How often does this make an appearance? Is it just for whenever they're needed that someone winds up having a ring? Or did they make sure 1 in 20 extras in the background is wearing a ring, and sometimes you can see it, sometimes you can't?
Yeah, it's a little bit almost like a cult or a religion in a way too.
Well, no one's worshiping anyone, so I guess it's a cult of personality at worst.
Yeah, I suppose.
I consider it more of a stealth network sort of thing. It's a knowledge thing. There's the, you're a psychiatrist, you make sure this bad guy is locked away where he will remain harmless for the rest of the world sort of thing. You're a police officer here. There's this, a mysterious crime that might warrant your attention sort of thing, so let me know whenever that happens. So it's very much like an information network in many cases, and in some cases, influence peddling.
I wonder, do you think, Anonymous, the
yes,
internet hacker kind of collective?
I guess it's a hacker collective. It's really hard to say. Well, if you want to be doing the hacking for this particular thing, you can do that. If you don't, you're not. So it's really more of a nebulous resource pool, I think is a better term for it.
Sure, okay. But I wonder if that, because you know how they have some pretty strong imagery. And
they've got some beautiful imagery and some
V for Vendetta.
Yeah.
And I think some of it would be inspired by The Shadow a little bit.
I think if The Shadow was to get out more in the modern thing, they would definitely adopt it more. Because I think The Shadow and just like I appear out of nowhere works very good with Anonymous's We Are Anyone. Anyone could be The Shadow. Everyone is anonymous.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Well, and don't get me wrong, V for Vendetta was a great movie. The comic series was even better.
Sure.
But that said, I mean, you can't, get the entire comic series done in 2 hours. You can watch the movie and get a good enough overview.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn about Guy Fawkes Day. So, hey, a little British education, right? So yes, I think V for Vendetta also has theme connections that derive from The Shadow.
Yeah, that's true. Shadow is a predecessor.
Yeah. I mean, what's the thing? I learned about The Shadow when the movie came out, but thanks to midnight radio that I used to be able to get, I stayed awake till 1 o'clock in the morning on school nights listening to X-1, another golden age of radio stories. So I heard stories of The Shadow. This is where I really got, a chance to dig into him, sort of thing. And I knew that he predated Batman, so it always struck me when I was looking at the reviews saying, this is just a bad copy of Batman with psychic powers. I'm like, no. Batman is a very good copy of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like I think I like V for Vendetta, the movie. I think I prefer that one to the one we just watched, The Shadow. I mean, don't get me wrong. With the Rise in the Hero movie, it was able to get the bigger production values and maybe
get
it's
a lot
just that
better
it
stuff.
came later and was able to draw on it a little bit.
That is I think one of the things is although without this stuff to start laying the groundwork that got the Spider-Man and X-Men movies out the door, maybe you wouldn't have even had any of that V for Vendetta stuff going. It's like I don't know, this stuff really isn't proven. We haven't done enough stuff there to prove it. So, maybe without this movie, you wouldn't have gotten that movie.
Mm-hmm. And maybe it's just, the other thing is maybe I'm not, I mean, on one level I think the psychic stuff is kind of cool, but on another level I find it less believable than if it's just something like, clandestine organizations, like this could really happen if the world was like this, as opposed to this, it's just magic. It's just Eastern influence magic, which is a little bit, I don't know, that's not the most in-fashion thing right now.
Rather than magic.
Eastern mysticism, yeah. And
magic kind of indicates, you're collecting like Eye of Newt or something.
Sure, yeah, and I don't think that's in favor or in fashion right now because people are like, well, no, we don't want to exoticize Chinese culture because that's, they don't like that when we do that.
On the other hand, I do like that they maintain, it's like, no, this is how the story of The Shadow goes. We will continue it. It's kind of like those Sleeman beer commercials. It's like, we're not going to hide from the truth because it's true. This is our history, and we're sticking with it, and we're not going to, coat it over and try and hide it because this is what actually happened. This is what we did.
Yeah, and I guess it's like the Tintin and the Far East books. Like, they still publish those, even though they have a little bit questionable stuff in them.
Yeah, I read some of that. Like, I didn't notice it when I was young, but now that I'm older, I was like, whoa, that's actually kind of iffy. But Herge meant well. He didn't do it out of maliciousness. And, I mean, that's why I forgive my daughter for so many things she winds up doing. Bopping me on the head with, a plastic hammer. So, it's like, Thor smash. Why she bent my glasses out, when she was like a year younger than she is now. She just wanted to try and open up my glasses and try and put them on. She wanted to wear glasses like Daddy does. She wound up bending things. I spent a good time just trying to bend it just back into place without breaking anything. Because if that had snapped, it's like, oh, no.
Yeah, glasses are expensive.
But that's the thing is, I realized my daughter was not doing it out of any malicious end sort of thing, So there was clearly no we're gonna this anti-Eastern agenda in the movie, muhaha. No, it was just like this is the history, this is how things go, and we're gonna keep true to that, and we're gonna try and make sure it has that. This is from like the 1930s, 1920s feel to it. Mm-hmm. Just so that way people will help notice the difference from like us trying to be kind of racist today and with how people thought of things back then. And honestly, I think it was very decently portrayed, all told. I didn't see anything that's like, wow, dude, that's like incredibly racist.
Well, at one point he says, oh, my Mongolian warriors are all dummies or something like that.
I believe that's because he was effectively mind-controlling them all. I believe they were just regular people he was controlling into believing they were Mongolian warriors.
Yeah.
Which it makes, every time like the shadow like shoots one or beats one up is like kind of ooh tragic. It's like dude is actually like he owns a shop here. He's a father of 3. He's just like had the unfortunate habit of just walking down the street, and this guy said, "You look like you might have Mongolian blood. You're a warrior now, thanks to my mind powers."
Yeah, and that's we could add that to the the evil overlord list of what not to do, because it's kind of dumb to create an army that's so dependent on your just the fact that you.
If you were to lose consciousness, it completely dissolves around you.
Yeah.
You want a group of people that are actually loyal to you and your outcomes. Yeah. So that way you get knocked unconscious, they will help save your life. Because remember, when the Wicked Witch of the West got melted, you liquefied her, and then all the soldiers have a party.
Yeah.
They didn't want to be soldiers for her. They had to be. Yeah. They were being forced by threats of horrible, evil witchery acts, sort of thing.
Well, I also wonder sometimes, though, with, especially in fiction, in stories, where there's an army who, the leader dies, and they, I wonder if that shift in loyalty is just because that's how they learn to adapt. They'd be like, oh, somebody new's in charge. Yay, woohoo, we love you now. Sort of.
I know which way the wind blows, man. You're the leader here.
We're going to have a party. Yeah. And then that guy dies. Oh, party. Yeah, we never liked him anyway.
Well, I guess you could say on one level it's the same as politicians versus bureaucrats. Mm-hmm. Politicians have a political agenda. Bureaucrats are working at a job. It doesn't matter who's in power, the bureaucrats work for them.
Yeah. Well, I like that thought of the soldiers being like, oh, okay, new leader. Oh, well,
do we still get a paycheck? Is it the same level? All right. Which way are we going?
Yeah. Just
lead the way, boss. Yeah. Just make sure that paycheck doesn't bounce at the end of every second week.
I guess that's the other thing. How incentivized, how much of an incentive is a party, really? People like parties, sure.
Yeah.
But, compared to a paycheck, you'd rather have the paycheck a little bit?
If you really believe in the political party agenda, then I suppose you'll take a pay cut on that sort of thing. Yeah. You'll work through the lean times.
I will go to, a club or a bar or something and enjoy myself, if somebody.
But you are not brand loyal. You're not going to always go to the Cobalt Club there sort of thing. You're not a Cobaltist in this case.
I guess not. I was just thinking how much do I value parties, just sort of entertainment in general. And I guess I do. I need a little bit of of that in my life just to keep myself on the level.
Which is sad, because I take a real good pleasure in doing a good day's job. It's like, oh boy, look at all this stuff I got done today. Look at all this. This is magnificent. This was me. Mm-hmm. Everything I did here was perfect. And so if you're not taking joy in this sort of thing, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. I guess we're just at odds on this.
Well, no, I like earning, I like working and
I like doing a good job as much as I like the paycheck.
Yeah.
I like making sure people have a good experience with my work.
I see. You're saying, the work itself is rewarding to you. Okay, yeah.
So, if you compare it to a political party sort of thing, I actually believe in the values thereof. So I guess I'd wind up, just so long as I can keep doing the job I love. Well, heck, at Cell4, I would have worked for minimum wage there. I enjoyed what I was doing so much, and I liked the job. Even on the worst day, I liked it so much, I'd have done that for minimum wage.
Yeah.
So, in that case, I guess I am a partyist as opposed to, the bureaucrat. I gotta enjoy what I do for a living. We wouldn't have made it through 148 iterations of this podcast without that.
That's true. Yeah, we just we do it for its own sake.
Well, we do it because we believe there's something we're getting out of there, which is ideas. We're properly digesting our fiction in this case. This is our fictional digestive tract.
Well, that's good. We're running out of time.
So yes, in the end, I believe I really recommend The Shadow as a movie, and it makes me want to search out for more radio, broadcasts I can listen to in the background as I'm playing my Minecraft. I want to hear all the radio serials of The Shadow now. This has gotten me deeply enthused. I want to break out the stats for TriStat, and I want to see how powerful is The Shadow within regards to the Tristat system.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is definitely more competent than Inspector Gadget, but he doesn't have the same huge ability array that Gadget does. So, is he technically a weaker superhero than Inspector Gadget?
That's true. Well, some of his powers, like, can be extremely effective just because, like, controlling someone's mind and the way other people perceive reality. I mean, that's like a shortcut to all kinds of other powers.
He has to effectively mind control everybody in the room before he becomes, like, invisible. Which means, I suppose, you could see him on closed-circuit TV. He can't make the machine forget him.
Right. Yeah.
So he has an interesting disability in the modern era. Something that just doesn't happen. You know, like how many closed-circuit TV cameras do you have in 1930s New York?
But couldn't he, like, here's the thing, though, because I don't know how his hypnotism works, but in theory, like, he can just sort of make eye contact with the camera, and then if the security guard happens to be watching at that moment, they'll get hypnotized through the camera.
But I don't think it works through hypnotic eyes. I think you actually have to get in the mind of it. So he might be able to just, like, I seek out every mind in the building until you do not notice a person who's wearing this kind of hat and this kind of scarf and is all in black.
Okay, so it's sort of a...
But you couldn't record it. You couldn't just, like, you have a recording of him, sort of thing, so that whenever you walk into a secret lair, out pops a television with him with a pre-programmed, ooh, you're going to leave this room and not remember anything. I don't think that's how telekinetic or, telepathic powers work.
Okay, yeah.
That's it. I don't know. I mean, I'm not telepathic.
That's all right. If our listeners are telepathic, we would love to have your telepathic thoughts beamed over.
In a much more conventional method, though, I do prize the sanctity of the bastion of my mind.
Oh, so you're requesting people not to contact you telepathically?
Until such a point where I can somehow construct some sort of mental balcony upon which somebody can leave a message or wait for me so that I can see them. Because I believe my thoughts are my own. Mm-hmm. I believe everybody's thoughts are their own. You can think whatever horrible thought you want. You can be the most horrible, racist, idiotic person you want. Just don't act on it. That's what I care about. You can think whatever horrible thoughts you want. Just don't act on them.
Okay.
And so I respect that. I respect that you can, and you know what? I don't have to know what horrible thoughts you've got going on in that head of yours. Those are your thoughts. All I really care about is your actions.
Okay.
And I would like people to have that same regard with me. I can have my own crazy little thoughts about, like, how would I kill everybody in this room right now? If everybody in this room was to suddenly try and fight me to the death, how do I survive? What do I do?
Okay.
Sort of thing. And I want, that's like, I guess, the most open of my crazy little thoughts. I want all those crazy thoughts of mine to remain my crazy thoughts. That's what I think. So long as I don't try killing everyone else in the room because I thought they were trying to get me first, that's okay.
I don't know. I think I have to admit, like, I have dark thoughts, too. I mean...
That's part of the I think
everybody does.
Right? Yeah.
And I am not really that afraid of somebody, like, telepathically, like, coming in and be like, hey, you thought that thing, like, I don't know, sexual or violent, or you thought that
or
thing.
Or both.
Like, now I'm going to expose you to the world. I mean, like... Yeah, I thought it. So what?
I've seen some very deep movies in my time, and I've seen there's been some scenes I've spent weeks just ruminating on. Like, okay, why is this stuck in my head? Why does this bother me? What's going on? So I wind up psychoanalyzing a lot of this stuff. But if you were to look in there and see me, okay, now what happens if I was to do this sort of scene here? How would that play out? Would I see it? What if I do things differently? So I play out a lot of rather dark scenarios in my head to see why does it stick in my head? What is going on here? So if you were just to take a peek, one, you get the wrong impression. Two, you would see, like a lot of darkness sitting in there. But that's darkness I wind up categorizing and shelving. So I know the darkness. I quantify the darkness in my own mind. So, like, without this preface, well, a lot of people, if you were to get into my head, you'd say, oh, my goodness, you're a horrible human being. Like, why don't I beat you up right now for those thoughts?
Well, here's the thing, though. Like, if there's a telepath out there who is, like, probing thoughts and that, like, they come across you, by the time they get to you, I'm sure they've encountered someone else with equally dark
Or
maybe
if not
not.
darker. Well, that's an interesting thing about deific power, sort of thing. Is humanity is interesting, but not as interesting as some other stuff out there. So to have a deity that likes humanity, he has to have a certain range of power. Powerful enough to notice us, but not powerful enough to find something more interesting than us.
That's true, yeah.
In which case, I suppose that applies to telepathic, invasion. I'll call it invasion because I haven't given permission.
Yeah.
One, I have to be interesting enough to warrant, ooh, look at this guy, but, not so, I was like, whatever, I've seen a lot worse. There's a prison here in Victoria, you ain't in the top 10 percentile of bad thoughts.
My thought on that is probably it's probably a lot more level than we think. I mean, maybe not, but I imagine that most normal people have a certain depth of darkness.
I don't know if enough people do the same level of introspection I do. I very highly believe that the unexamined life is not worth living, and so I examine the life around me.
Yeah, but you don't think other people do? You don't think?
Maybe not to the same degree, and rational depict it. Like it's like, what's up with racism? So it's like, okay, now think a racist thought. Like how does that come about? Like think something racist. Okay, I think that was racist. Now, like, how does somebody keep that in their head all the time where that's what's consuming them? Mm-hmm. So I can get into the head of somebody, not actually read their mind, but if I can get into the same sort of mental headscape as them, then I can start, perceiving the same as them. And it's like, okay, I think I see where you're coming from. I won't be unduly angry at you, but maybe I can lead you back to my headspace by seeing how far I have to go back to mine.
Okay, that's all right. That's okay.
But yeah, I wind up thinking okay, now think horrible thoughts about this, and okay, how did you get there? And now, how hard is it to keep there? So, how much work is it to be this kind of a horrible human being? I find it rather difficult to be a horrible human being, but the more I think it, the easier it gets. So maybe that's what winds up being it. You just have to wear in a nice little rut of horrible thoughts.
Maybe. Now this idea of someone being able to invade your brain. Don't you think they could only see surface thoughts? Like I've always thought about telepathy is that you have a good chunk of your memories are just sort of sitting there stored, and until you actually actively attempt to access them, you can't really.
I believe
if somebody came in telepathically and was like, what are you all about? They'd see what you were thinking about at that moment, and be like, oh, okay.
That's the thing. I got a lot of spare brain power to use at work. Until I get a much more mentally demanding job, I have a lot of spare brain power to run through, and I can only think about what I'm going to wind up doing in Minecraft for so long before I've effectively got my plans positioned out, and I got to put them down, in the actual game. What are my plans for after work today? What am I going to? I mean, that doesn't occupy a lot of brain power to work with. And so it's well, time to pursue the depths of the human condition.
Okay.
So
maybe you are darker than normal.
Or I'm just more analytical than average, maybe.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if I'm actually thinking darker thoughts than some people. I mean, I have to really work at it. Just talking about it. I mean, there's a spot on my left, side of my brain that's just feeling a little sore from having to think these horrible thoughts.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to get to our email address.
We tangented pretty bad, didn't we?
At gmail.com is our email address. And you can write on our Facebook page, Facebook.
Don't write on our Mindscape, please.
/ The Simulationist. You can check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com / The Simulationist. And check us out on iTunes. Write little reviews, stars, thumbs up, whatever you want to give it. Up to 5. In the case of iTunes.
Yeah, that proves how bad I am. I will willingly go to YouTube and read a lot of those comments people leave. Those are YouTube comments I'm reading.
Yeah, that's pretty dark.
Yeah, I gotta try. Okay, what set of circumstances would put a person to believe this is what I should do? I should write this. And so I'll think there, and I'll put that line, and usually it's a horribly misspelled, badly grammatical line, and I'll just put that in my head, and what person puts that into, as the best outcome for their choices at that moment? So that's some dark thoughts going on there, man. So, yeah.
And also tell a friend in real life or in
I
your
suppose
gaming group.
I suppose if you are telepathic in that case, telepathically, tell a friend Google the Simulationist. They'll have interesting things that you might learn about.
We will. So, yeah, I don't know. Are we done?
What's your ultimate review on that? Is this a movie you'd recommend to other people?
It's an enjoyable movie. I mean, I don't take it too seriously, but at the same time, it has its funny moments, and it doesn't take itself too seriously either. So I think it's worth watching, just to have a bit of amusement and see how that guy drove a car into a tank and blew it up.
Well, I mean, there's one scene where he's in a death trap, and he finds a very nice way to make sure he doesn't run out of oxygen. It's like, oh yes, that is a completely believable, excuse for oxygen in the system here.
Yeah, I believed it. Yeah.
And so, I applaud that, because, I mean, they could have gotten goofy. It's like, I'd used my Tibetan meditation techniques to slow my heartbeat down so that I didn't need the oxygen, and then just waited until salvation came to me. He could have done that. That could have been like a valid option, but this one was like, it's a logical sense, answer for this whole thing. Haha.
All right, yeah. So I give it a recommendation.
This is I'll go more than recommendation. This is a movie I would not mind adding to my collection.
Right.
This is something I would like to have on hand for future perusal or lending out to a friend.
Yeah, and I like it too as a matter of historical record. Not that, I mean, it is obviously a 90s movie based on a much older movie, but I think it's also interesting to see that people kind of revisit that historical thing.
Telepathic powers are usually seen as something that happens in the future, to show how highly evolved a human you are, how powerful are your telekinetic abilities. This was telepathic powers, but back in time. So you had the telepathic powers without this is the future of all humanity sort of thing that usually goes along with.
Yeah, but wasn't the original Shadow? It was supposed to be at the very near future. That was how that.
It was supposed to be 20 minutes in the future.
Day
sort
after
of thing.
tomorrow. Yeah. So it was a little bit futuristic, but yeah. And then when they adapted it in the 90s, they're like, no, we're going to make it a period piece.
But the glowing rings are still a little bit anachronistic.
Yeah.
But that said, it was never about we've got flying cars and cities on the moon sort of future. This was, welcome to crummy New York. We've got a pneumatic tube system, mind control powers, and glowing rings.
Yeah. Right.
So I wasn't that futuristic, but it was very interesting seeing the juxtaposition of the powers of the human mind in the future with New York in the 1930s. So yeah, I really dug that as a nice little motif. And admittedly, not a lot of psychic power stuff is really used in the comics or in the movies these days. I mean, Professor X, he has these great powers, but you don't see him actually going out there and solving them. The worst he does is make sure his X-Men are mentally healthy through sometimes snipping a memory away so they forget things, usually at their behest. Sometimes he will snip his own brain to make him a much better human being. He'll get rid of those negative thoughts of his. But that's not in all continuities. A very interesting premise to follow up with, but not the same as, I solve, crime by, making sure people do as they're supposed to.
Didn't Dumbledore do the same thing?
Well, spoiler alert, dude. But, there may have been aspects of that happening there. But that's magic, so you can get away with a little bit more leeway on that sort of thing.
Okay. Right.
But yes, I highly recommend it. It verifies my long-held position that Alec Baldwin would have made perhaps the best Batman ever.
Yeah, he was a good Shadow. The Shadow is very similar to, especially
because Batman's based on the Shadow to some degree. Wealthy white man, with a crime-fighting, secret identity.
Yeah.
But that said, who better to play, a rich socialite, guy than a rich socialite? So, any of the Baldwins probably would have worked, but I think Alec Baldwin might be my favorite of the Baldwin brothers.
Sure, cool. All right, well, I guess that's it for this week. Yeah. We'll be back again
in 7 days.
Thanks for listening, and send money. I've been Josh Trelevin.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.